Thanks everyone for joining us today. This is the second in our webinar series. We're starting to do these monthly info sessions. Last month we did one that was just sort of a general introduction to Curata tours, to our type of travel and some of the tours we have coming up for next year. So we're going to start diving a bit deeper every month with some topics that we get the most questions about from our travelers and from people interested in our tours. So today we're focusing on some of our tips and tricks for booking flights, and then we'll go into highlighting two of our new tours for next year. We've got our Sicily Calabria tour and our iconic Italy tour. For those who are new to Curata Travel, I just wanted to give a little background. We started the company 12 years ago now. It started as part of a cheese business, Caputo Brothers Creamery, and grew from there. We started doing 1 or 2 trips a year. It's grown into 16 or 17 tours. We go all over the boot of Italy. We go to the islands, Sardinia, Sicily, and every tour is focused on culinary traditions of where we're visiting. We're focused not only on off the beaten path locations to show you a different side of Italy, but also the artisans that make Italy what it is. So beyond just, you're going to eat well when you go to Italy regardless, but we try to take you to some of our favorite spots, some artisans that we've known over the years. And beyond just that experience, we're trying to give everyone a sense of community. So our small group tours are usually about 20 people, and everyone comes away, I think, feeling like they've joined a little bit of a family. So that's something that we really value about our tours. Like I said, we travel all over the boot of Italy. So you might be booking flights to Milan, to Rome, to Sicily. So we don't include flights in our tours. And part of that in their tour pricing, part of that is because we're not travel agents, but part of that is also because since we do go off the beaten path, we are going to some smaller airports. We have a lot of people that are looking to still see the Rome, the Venice, the Florence of Italy, if this is going to be maybe your one trip to Italy. So we have a lot of people that will extend their trips on either end of a tour, and we like to give people the flexibility to do that. So whether you work with a travel agent or want to book on your own, we thought we would share just some of our favorite tips and tricks to booking your flights. My first tip here is to start your search early, and you'll see search in italics because we recommend actually doing your booking about 4 to 6 months before your tour. The search part is something that you can start doing whenever you book the tour. It's actually something you should do to get an idea of cost as you're thinking about coming on the tour. So beyond just the tour cost, you want to think about things like the 2 things that are not included, which are flights and trip insurance, and sort of factor that into your budget. Starting your search early, you can set up a flight tracker, things that are going to track prices of the flight you're looking for. If you're looking too far in advance, you might not see all of the itineraries that are going to be available. So you don't want to be sort of trapped into, I found one flight, I have to book it, and it's ridiculously expensive. So using tools that compare prices is important. And so I'm going to show you, we love Google Flights. I'm going to show you sort of an example search, and it's going to encompass a lot of this, the staying flexible and comparing costs. So a lot of that's going to be covered in this little demo of Google Flights here. So the example that I'm using is I live about 15 minutes from BWI Airport outside of Baltimore. And I was looking at our Due Coste tour. So if you were to look at the Due Coste tour on our website, you would see that, let me move everyone's faces. You would see, so if you're looking at any of our tour pages, you'll see the dates, and to find information about flights, if you scroll down, you'll see tabs across the bottom. You click on flights, and you'll see the airports where your pickup and drop off will be. It has the dates and times of pickup and drop off, and this is for your group transfer. If you end up booking a flight that's much earlier, you would just be responsible for your own transfer, but this would be the group transfers that are included. So for Due Coste, we pick up the group at the Naples airport and drop them off at the Bari airport in Puglia. So if we're going back to Google Flights, I would be initially looking at BWI to Naples and then Bari back to BWI. And the dates I have in here, so the tour starts on June 3rd. You would leave the US on June 2nd. So flights to Italy would be overnight. And then this tour ends on June 12th. So if I do a search, and this is doing multi-city means that you're not doing a round trip. So if I do a search just like that, these are the choices it's going to give me. So BWI is a smaller international airport. It's going to give me a lot of times, it's going to give me 2 stops, most of which are still in the US before it even leaves. So I also, where I am, I'm kind of an hour from the Dulles airport or the DC Reagan airport or Philadelphia. So what you can do in your departure is broaden your search. So I'm going to put in Washington. And like you saw, that includes DC, Dulles, BWI. Then you can also add. So I'm going to add Philly. And then I'm going to do the same for the return. All right, so you can see this is moving. It's starting to pull up some new trips. So you can see the price didn't change much, but I now have a nonstop option. And look at all these choices that are only one stop. So that's one step you can do. Another step is just because we drop you off and pick you up at 2 different airports does not mean you have to fly in and out of those airports. It is often much better for pricing to do a round trip. So if I change this to round trip and it's just to Naples, you can see the price is starting to go down. I still have a nonstop option. I still have my one stop, but they're closer. They're dropped maybe $100. And then what you would do at the end of the trip, we drop you off at the Bari airport. You could either rent a car, you could find a local flight, you could find like an EasyJet or a Ryanair flight, which is typically less than $100 a person, and fly from Bari back to Naples. You could also take the train. And then something else you could look at is the dates. We have a lot of people that like to get in a day early to either explore the city that you're going to be in, but mostly just to avoid, any complications with delays and mostly to get over jet lag. So that way you can hit the ground running on the first day of your tour. So what you want to do to look at the dates is if you go down here and you click on date grid, Chris just did a great reel on our social media about this. This is showing this green and the stars. This is really a sweet spot. So this is showing you a grid of your departure or of your flight out and then your flight home. So you can see here it's starting to get into some higher pricing. You can see if you were to move a couple days earlier, it would be a little bit higher, but you're really good in these couple days here, and same with your return. And there's also a price graph option, which shows you in a different format. So right now it says prices are currently typical. If you want to track prices, so say we're more than 6 months out, you're not ready to book, but you want to keep an eye on these flights. If you turn on, usually it's set to off. If you turn on track prices, it's going to send you emails if prices change. If you're interested in a specific flight, so I like this nonstop flight from Philly to Naples. So that was the departure flight. This is the return. So this is the flight I'm interested in. It then breaks down the different categories. So I want to keep an eye on this flight. So I'm going to click track prices. And so you've subscribed. You can also add all available flights, which is what we looked at before. So these are ways that you can start to track prices. It's ways that you can think about different flight options, whether you're, like we said, going back to being flexible on dates, layovers, being flexible with airports. So again, not only your departure airport here in the US, another popular option between the DC, we have a lot of travelers in the Mid-Atlantic area. If you put in New York City or New York as your option, you're going to get JFK, Newark, LaGuardia, that whole area as well. So that is a tool that also compares the prices, that covers the staying flexible. Considering layovers, we'll talk about that a little bit more on the next slide as well, but consider, an overnight layover somewhere. This summer, I think or this fall, Chris and Brianna both had layovers in Copenhagen. You could consider booking that an extra day, staying a day in Copenhagen to explore, taking real advantage of the fact that you're over in Europe and getting to see a new location. Something else you want to keep in mind is comparing total costs. So when I pulled up that one flight, it showed at the bottom for American, it showed basic economy, main cabin, all of those. If you saw in there, it said whether luggage was included, whether a seat selection was included. So again, that's something to keep in mind for insurance. My last point on this slide is trip insurance. We strongly recommend trip insurance. We have a company we work with. You can find that information on our website. A lot of people use AAA. If you are a AAA member, they offer trip insurance. Some credit cards have trip insurance included. So if you're going to be putting any of your tour costs on a credit card, I would call them or look at your benefits and see if that's something that's included, and you might want to use that card. And then when you're booking your flight, those of you who booked flights recently, you'll notice at the end, there'll be something that says, do you want to insure your tickets? And it might be an extra $50 to $75 per ticket, usually through a company called Allianz, which also has great trip insurance programs. That's something we highly recommend. So protecting your flight, protecting your tour costs, it's something that has become a necessity since COVID, and making sure that it's something that is covered. It's something that we'll talk about probably in a later webinar as well, go into it a little deeper, but making sure that some people just get trip insurance to cover lost luggage, or if you miss your flight, need a hotel, that kind of thing. You want to make sure it's including cancellation for any reason. Basically, that's the highest level. And that's something you really want to consider when you're looking at trip insurance.
All right.
Brianna.
Yes, I'm gonna take it over. My name is Brianna Giesman. I am one of the experienced curators here at Curata Travel. I've been working with Curata since 2022, just about a month or two before it officially launched as Curata Travel. And I'm happy to be on the call today to sort of walk you through some flight options or flight tips and tricks, as well as talk about some of our upcoming tours in 2025. So to continue what Kyle was talking about, another tip we have is booking directly with the airline, or considering a travel agent to help you. So even though we showed you looking through all of the Google flight options, that's just a tool, and we recommend to book directly with the airline itself. So use that information you've got, take note of the dates, the times, the flight numbers, and then you can put that information into American or British Airways or United, whatever you're looking at, and book it that way. Kyle also mentioned AAA. So they provide travel insurance, but they can also provide you with a travel agent to help you book flights. So that's another way that they can be a little useful, or maybe you have a travel agent that you worked with in the past. So they're always there to help you. And of course, if you book a tour with us, we're here to sort of guide you along the way. So you're welcome to email us, call us with questions, or if you're looking at a flight itinerary and you just need a thumbs up, like, yeah, you did a good job, this looks great, and it looks like a good option for you, we're happy to look at that stuff for you too. Frequent flyer programs. So a lot of the airlines will have a frequent flyer program that you can join, and you can get points that way or miles. They also have credit cards that you can take advantage of that once you're using the credit card, you can actually put those points towards a flight. So if you are traveling more and more, that's something to think about. And usually if you continue to rack up points or mileage, you get a certain status, you get free bags at some point or a free seat selection. So if you're traveling a lot in the future, definitely take a look at some of those options.
I would say you also end up on their email list and get information about fare sales. I would say following the airlines on social media as well. There were a lot of promotions for Travel Tuesday, which we shared as well, but making sure you're getting their notifications when they're having their own fare sales.
Absolutely. Kyle already touched on this a little bit, but definitely optimize those layovers. So if you're looking at flying from Philly or somewhere in Washington to Naples, and there's an overnight stop in London, take advantage of it. So fly out a day early, go have dinner downtown, and then you can get a good night's rest before hopping on the plane and arriving in Italy the next day. So that's definitely an option, and also might save you some stress if a direct flight arriving the day your tour starts gets delayed a little bit. So you have some wiggle room in there to arrive to Italy on time. And then double checking your travel restrictions before your trip to ensure smooth travel. Now that's something that we as Curata will sort of guide you through that process beforehand. So we'll make sure if there's anything important you need to know, ahead of time, but also check in with your airline, check in with the airport that you're leaving out of or the airport you're flying into to see if there's anything going on there. We also recommend enrolling in I think it's called Smart, right? Am I getting, yeah, Smart. So it's a government tool website, and basically you're putting in your information, your contact information, and your travel itinerary, and they just make note of where you're going. And if there is anything going on, they send you an email or give you a call and let you know anything that there is that you need to know about. So we'll send out a newsletter about 6 months before your trip starts that will go over that process as well.
And one thing that I didn't mention as we talk about layovers again is there's another site called flightconnections.com, which you can put in your departure and arrival airlines, and it pulls up a whole world map and shows all of the possible connection options. It pulls up the flights as well, but if you're kind of like just starting out and you're again putting in the Washington to Naples, it'll show you all the different possibilities. And if you're like, oh, I'd really like to go to Portugal, maybe I want to make that my layover. You click on that, it tells you what flight that is that connects in Lisbon or something like that. So if that is something you're interested in, flightconnections.com is a great way to look at all of your layover options in sort of if you're a visual learner, like I am, and Brianna, it shows you the whole grid of all the flight options and really can help you sort of, dream about where else you want to visit on your way to Italy.
Perfect. Thank you I forgot to mention that, so thank you. Okay, passport and visa. I'm gonna put visa in quotation marks. Those requirements. So passport, everyone will need a passport in order to enter anywhere in the Schengen zone, anywhere in Europe. Technically, you need minimum 3 months validity after your planned departure date from the country that you're visiting. So say you're planning to depart from Italy June 1st, and your passport needs to be good for another 3 months after that. Now that's technically 3 months. We recommend it being more like 6 months. So if you're seeing that, your passport's expiring somewhere, if you're departing June 1st, if it's if it is expiring anywhere between that November, December time, definitely think about renewing it before traveling to Italy, just to be sure. And if you need to renew, check online. It usually gives you the timing and how long it takes at the moment that you're looking, because sometimes it takes 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes it's 6 to 8. It just depends on how many applications they're getting at that point. So you can do that ahead of time. And if you're in a time crunch, there is a faster process, like an expedited process, so you can pay a little bit more to get that done. But just get it done early and out of the way so you don't have to worry about it when your trip starts getting closer.
Yeah, and there is also, so there's the expedited plan that you can, like Brianna said, pay extra for. There also is sort of an emergency situation where you're leaving in 2 days and you just looked at your passport and it expires. A lot of people don't know that you can contact your state representative and they will make a call and expedite it for you. So you don't have to have a connection or anything like that. It's a service. They You can call their office and put in the request. And I know, and we know a handful of people that have done that. I don't know anyone who's tried it and it hasn't worked for. So just know that that is a one thing you can maybe hope to take some panic off if you are getting ready to leave for your flight. And notice that it is, you are kind of at the will of how far you have to travel, because you may have to go, who I have a friend from this area who then had to go to an office in DC. We had one of our we had a chef leading a tour that was going to be flying out of New York and I think had to go to Boston. So it was a whole thing, but they got it. They got on their flight. So there are remedies if there is an emergency situation there.
But you guys are on top of things, so you won't ever have to do that.
Exactly.
Okay, so this next part, this is a new requirement. They say it's starting mid 2025. However, they said it was starting in 2023. They said it was starting in 2024, and now they're saying sometime mid 2025. So we're keeping a close eyes on things, just to see if this actually happens this year. But so it is the ETIAS, the Electronic Traveler Information and Authorization System. It sounds scary. It's actually pretty simple. It's basically just an application where they ask you your name, your contact information, where you're traveling. And then you pay a small fee. I think it's around €7, so maybe 8, $9. You submit it online. They ask you to do it around 3 days before you travel. It gets approved, and then you're good to enter whichever country you're traveling to. It's more of I think they call it an electronic travel permission or something like that. So it's not technically a visa. It's just a small little step that you have to do beforehand. But again, if you're traveling with us, we remind you, we let you know when to do it. So that's not something that you have to worry about.
And once you have your flights booked, it's something that your airline should also be contacting you about. And I believe it stays in the system for a couple of years. It's not something you have to do every time you're traveling. I believe they were saying it might last 3 years from the first time you fill it out. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Again, if you're booked on one of our tours that is departing after this goes into place, we'll be on top of it and let you know. But it's just something to be aware of. We have a lot of people who had seen articles about this back in 2023 when they first started talking about it and are asking about it. So we just want to give everyone the most recent update on that. I don't know, Chris or Brianna, have you seen any questions in the chat that need answering? No? Okay. So just want to sum up with the flights going back. And again, this is something that if you sign up for one of our tours and have a question, we can certainly walk you through any of this. But my biggest takeaways, I think I would say for people, is that when you're looking at one of our tours and you look at, like, we have a tour that the pickup point is Florence and the drop off, no, pickup point is Pisa and the drop off point is Florence airports. Those are relatively close together, but we try to keep you as close to our first destination as possible. We don't like to have, really long bus rides. We want to get you there as soon as possible so you can be enjoying everything. So that doesn't mean that you have to book those flights in and out of Florence and Pisa. Those are both very small airports. I would recommend, in fact, doing a round trip in and out of one of those. Pick one, and then you can get a driver. It's that close. You can get drivers in between. It just, if we were to have you fly into Florence, that would add that much more to your first day's transfer. So again, whatever trip you're signed up for will help you, but my biggest takeaway is to stay flexible and think outside the box when it comes to any of those things, dates, locations, airports, all of those. So that's my moral of my story there. So if there's no questions right now about flights, we're going to go into two of our upcoming tours for next year. We want to spend a little time in each of these webinars. In our last one, we kind of went through all of 2025, which is with a lot of trips next year. So these are the first two next year that still have seats available that we wanted to talk about a little bit. The first being our Sicily Calabria tour, and the second being Iconic Italy. And one of the things we find to be the most valuable for people is to hear from previous travelers. So we actually have some special guests here. We've got some former travelers of ours, Paul and Kim Strizzy. They've actually done both of these tours before in different iterations, I think, and they can correct me. The Iconic Italy was maybe 2016, and then Sicily Calabria was just this year. And so both of those itineraries have changed a little bit over time, but I'm going to bring them on and see. I think I did this right. So we're going to bring them on and they can talk a little about their travels with us. They actually did two tours with us this year, the Sicily Calabria and Croatia cruise this summer, which was so much fun.
It was amazing.
And they're now joining us from Mexico. So they do not let any moss grow. They're always on the move.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here and part of this. Kyle asked if we would jump in and just talk about some of our favorite experiences and some of the things that we absolutely love about traveling with Curata. And so I could bubble over and probably talk for 2 hours about this, but we won't do that. So some of our favorite experiences, and we'll stick with the tours that we're talking about today. The very first tour that we took with Italy, as Kyle was saying, was in 2016, and it started out in Cinque Terre. And I will never ever forget the first evening we had a sunset tour, a sunset cruise down along all of the towns, the 5 towns of Cinque Terre, and we drank so much prosecco that a boat had to come and bring more prosecco to us while we were touring, and it was just so much fun, and we enjoyed the sights, the scenery, my gosh, the food. It was just an amazing first exposure to Italy, and I'll never ever forget it. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, one of the it's going to be in Cinque Terre also, but it applies to everywhere you're going to go. The Curata people will give you suggestions during your free time, places to go, and they're always excellent. But sometimes you just say, I'm going to go somewhere else, and so you just start to stroll, and it's amazing what you find. When we were in Cinque Terre, which was our very first trip, and we decided to do that little stroll, we took a train. You can take a train down along the coast to all 5 towns. And so we ended up missing the stop we wanted, got to the last 5 town, had to come back, but it's not that far, so it was good. But Rio Maggiore was the town we finally got to, and we got off the main drag and just found a hill and started to walk up the hill. Nothing great and not too difficult, but at the top of that hill was a plaza. and beautiful cafe overlooking the ocean and the hill. So you never know what you're going to find on these trips, and they give you plenty of time to do that. So that's great.
Another thing that I recall, and it's everywhere we go, the people in Italy are so welcoming and so warm. They are so happy that you're there. And one of the little towns that we went to, and we had a little free time, and we were told that there were some bocce courts that we should try to find. And so we're looking at this map and we are completely lost. We have no clue where we're going to go. We're trying to decide if we should go left or right. I don't know. And this very kind police officer comes up and says, "May I help you find something?" And we told him what we were looking for. And he goes, "Ah, I'll take you there." And so he walked with us and showed us how to get to this location, which was a 20-minute walk. And but he talked with us the whole time. His name was Paolo also. And he was just the nicest person. And Paul kept saying, "Are you okay leaving the spot that you're?" He goes, "Oh, it's fine, no problem." We had so much fun. It was everyone is so warm and welcoming in Italy. We enjoy very much. We enjoy the people there.
Yeah, and everyone just wants to share their country with you. They want to share, when we go to a restaurant for a meal, or if we go to an olive oil farm or something like that, everyone just is so excited to share. They're so excited that you are there to learn about what they make and what their family has always made. And that they just want to, I mean, we were talking the other day about when we plan meals, and sometimes, we always say the biggest complaint is that there's too much food, and we do try to cut down some meals. And so we'll say, well, we don't want 2 pastas. We'll be like, okay, so you get 2 main dishes then. They just are excited to share everything with you. What do you guys think is this is going to be hard, some of your favorite meals or bites that you've ever had?
Goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, that is very hard because we've been on 5 of your trips to Italy. So
Yeah.
absolutely, the places where we could get the seafood was always so good. And definitely when you combine the seafood with the homemade pasta, it's fantastic. I was thinking about our most recent trip to Sicily and Calabria. We were on the ferry going from Sicily over to Calabria, and we were told, "You got to try the arancini." And oh my goodness, it was just amazing, this ginormous rice ball. And yes, it was. Oh my gosh, it was so good. It was so good.
Yeah, not something you would think about on a ferry. That it's a little known secret that we like everyone to try.
Well, what was extra interesting about that was that you folks told us, as soon as you get on that ferry, head to the little cafe part.
And you saw the line.
You were right. We did, and there was already a line, like 25 people. So yeah, amazing. It
was fantastic.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick a favorite food. One of the great things that I like with Curata is that you are off the beaten path, so to speak. I mean, some places are. I mean, you're going to go down a dirt road on some of these trips. I don't know about these 2, but some of them are that far off. But you're also not in the big city. So you're getting to these smaller restaurants and places, and they just love to feed you. You have to pace yourself, you really do. And you'll get a lot of walking, and so that's good. Favorite food, it's just so hard because there's been so much of it. But the one that always sticks out are the seafoods and the homemade pastas. And the fresh sardines that we had down on the Amalfi Coast. I mean, just unbelievable. So, and I could talk all day about the food. So we'll be good that way.
Yeah, and there's no shortage. There's some good seafood both in the Cinque Terre and then on that Sicily portion and Calabria portion of those 2 trips, for sure. Do you guys have any other thoughts about that you think people should know about Curata travel? And why you've done so many trips with us?
Absolutely. Well, I think the part that makes it so wonderful for me is that all we have to do is get to the airport, in Italy and you pick us up and you are so welcoming and you make sure that we are so comfortable and you do basically everything, soup to nuts, for us until that last day and we get dropped off at the airport to go home. You make us, you make sure that the experiences that we have are exceptional. It is, you know, it's just amazing. I can't say enough about how much you put your time and your heart and your soul into making these experiences so wonderful. We appreciate that very much. And you do exactly what, you know, off the beaten path. You make sure that we experience the culture, the wonderful food that that region or that area has to offer. And it just, and the wine, you know, you take us to these little restaurants and they make their own wine and it is so good. And the food just blows you away. Oh, it's just, it is nothing short of amazing. We enjoy it so much.
If I can pointedly towards the two trips you're talking about, in Calabria, I'm sure that Curata is going to take you folks to this particular place. If they don't, ask them how to get there. It's a little shop called La Caseta di Picantina.
Picantino.
Picantino. And Francesco and Maria. Beautiful shop. Great, lots of good foods in there. And there's a specialty I'm not going to say about because that's for Curata to tell you about. But if you don't get there as a group, make sure that you get you there. The other thing I wanted to say was I was talking about seafood, Ortigia, right along the waterfront. There are a lot of great little cafes that have excellent seafood and pasta. And one more thing I think I wanted to talk about, the Catania market. I believe you're going to the Catania market. That's an experience. Don't skip that part of the tour if you're on the tour there. The thing that amazed me, there were so many things, but I saw this huge thing of baby squid. And I'd never seen baby squid. And I said to the shopkeeper there, what do you do with that? And he knew enough English to tell me they make meatballs with it. And I was like, oh, well, there's something interesting. So you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot in that tour.
The other thing that I like is that when you pick the hotels are all so charming and authentic. And I mean, I'm just thinking about the hotel in Ortigia. You got to go up to the rooftop to have breakfast every morning. And it was just so picturesque and beautiful. And all of the hotels that we've stayed in on our trips with you have been like that, just very authentic, very just beautiful. It just so you feel like you're at you feel like you're staying in someone's I don't know, home or what have you. It's just so amazing the way that you choose the hotels that we stay in.
Yeah, we do try to give that, but you guys have probably stayed, I mean, with 5 trips, it's at least 15 different hotels for sure. So you know that we do try to give people a blend of different accommodations, whether it's, you know, a more modern hotel in a city or an agriturismo experience that's more of a farm, or a family run inn, that kind of thing. So we try to give you, especially in each trip, we try to give everyone a good experience so you can, you know, we're not staying at like a hotel chain of American hotels. We're trying to immerse you in whatever city we're in. So you guys have certainly seen all of that for sure. Well, thank you guys so much for taking time away from the beach. Very much appreciate. We'll let you get back to poolside or beachside and enjoy the rest of your Mexico vacation.
I did want to add, I didn't know Paolo was going to talk about his experience at the one little shop, but I did include a picture of him there later in the presentation. So I feel like it's just meant to be.
Brianna, so good.
Grazie, Brianna.
Well, thanks for thinking of us.
Much.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again for taking time from your vacation. Have a margarita or a guacamole for me.
Okay, you
All
got
right,
it.
we will.
Take care.
Have a great trip, everybody, if you go along.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Mhm.
Ciao, ciao. All right, so that was awesome that they joined us, especially during their vacation. So again, we find that we can tell you as much as we want about our tours, but to hear it from the guests is just gives you a whole other view of it. So whoops, hold on. I lost everyone. Where?
We're
All
here.
right, so all right, back to the tour. Back to the tour highlights. So, like I said, they gave you a little insight into the two tours that they did. And now we're going to go into each tour and give you some background on it. Sicily Calabria is the first tour next year where we still have seats available. And we've changed this itinerary a little from previous years to incorporate Palermo. And we did that because we have always had Palermo in our Western Sicily itinerary, and it's something that people have always said they would like to see more of. I don't think a lot of Americans think to go there. It is a very cool city with amazing architecture, amazing street food, and is really a bustling, vibrant city that has a beautiful opera house and some museums. So we'll start the tour there before moving down to the southeast coast to a town called Siracusa that has a small island in the city called Ortigia, which is where our hotel will be based. And then from there, we'll go across to the mainland. You can see down here, this is sort of Palermo and then Siracusa. We'll take the ferry across to Tropea. So I'll give a little background on each area, but that's the general itinerary. And this is for the beginning of May of next year. This is a little closer look. You'll see, so you can see this is so close. When you take this ferry, the ferry is about 20 minutes and you can see the other side. You're just amazed at how close the two areas are. So this gives you a closer look. And then our first stop in Palermo. Palermo is the capital of Sicily. It has, like I said, an amazing architectural mix and the cultures because it has been conquered so many times from so many different cultures. So it has amazing architectural style, amazing food influences. There is some African influence. One of the spot highlights here, like I said, is a street food tour. So it has multiple food markets. We'll do a guided tour. You'll get to try some of the arancini that Kim was talking about, cannoli, some of the famous items from this area. You do have some free time here as well. Like I said, the museums are incredible. There's a very cool catacomb experience. And this whole tour, all of our lodging is in a different kind of palazzo or palace. So we're in an old villa here in a converted villa right in the heart of Palermo that gives you wonderful access to explore different parts of the city. So our first 3 nights will be in Palermo. And then when we depart Palermo to head to Siracusa, we're stopping in the town of Cefalù for some time to explore, and we'll have a lunch there as well. So if you remember from the map earlier, we're going to head not completely across the coast, sort of cut across the middle of the country to head down to this area of Siracusa. Siracusa is famous for, there's a wonderful archaeological park there with incredible ruins. And I don't know if anyone saw the most recent Indiana Jones movie, which I really don't recommend other than this part of it, is that a lot of it takes place in this town. So it's very focused on the archaeological park itself. And again, it's a really terrible movie, but that part of it is fun to watch, especially if you're about to go or have already been. So Ortigia is the heart of the city. It, like I said, it's an island, but it is basically, the bridge is, less than a football field long to get over to it. And it has maybe my favorite piazza in all of Italy. It has this incredible piazza, incredible Duomo, It's a perfect spot to sit and have a spritz and just watch people. There's always people dancing, there's music playing, and our hotel is right again in the heart of right off the piazza. There's amazing shops here as well. And we'll be doing a couple excursions. One of them is a winery tour and tasting and lunch at this incredible winery outside of town. You will have free time in Ortigia as well, where we'll give you guides on how to get to the archaeological park. There's great, Rin and I this year took a tuk-tuk tour around town, and there's a wonderful daily market there as well with an incredible sandwich maker that if you have seen on, I don't know, probably on the TikTok, but definitely on Instagram, on the TikTok, that's a famous sandwich maker. And they've become friends of ours over the years. And so it's an incredible stop to get lunch. And we'll have some wonderful meals featuring some of the seafood that Paul and Kim were talking about. And of course, more cannoli before we leave Sicily. So on our departure day, we will take the ferry over. The ferry is, we will literally take the bus, drive right onto the ferry. You'll have time to get out, get those arancini. And then before you know it, we'll be landing in Calabria. So we'll be right at the very tip of the toe of Italy. We will, before we get to Tropea, we'll stop in a little fishing village called Scilla, which is known for its sword fishing industry. Industry seems like a very big word for this small town, but it is this amazing little fishing village where we'll stop for a seafood lunch. We'll try the swordfish. We'll have mussels and just an incredible outdoor lunch. And before continuing into Tropea. Tropea, you can find it if you just Google it, you'll see it's been named, it says right here, Jewel of Calabria, one of Italy's most beautiful villages. It's a popular vacation spot for Italians. You can see in this little shot down here, this is the Santa Maria dell'Isola. So this is a little area that juts out. If you think this is the town up here, there's overlook, you can see the church. And at this time, this is high season down here, you'll see this amazing beach down there. Calabria is known for the pepperoncino, so spicy foods. There's a very popular product called Nduja that we will explore. There's also a huge, I mentioned sword fishing, it's also a huge tuna area as well. And so we just this year started taking people for an incredible experience at a tuna producer and have a lunch afterwards that's incredible, that features a lot of their products, fresh tuna, preserved tuna, all of it. It's amazing. And then friends of ours have Frantoio, which is an olive oil farm that we'll visit and have an incredible lunch there. Just this year we were laughing because we had asked them to do a light lunch, and the food just kept coming, and everyone's like, you don't understand a light lunch. So we've now tried to pare that down. But they've been great friends of ours. It's one of our favorite olive oils, and you really get to see an artisanal producer and how they manage their farm, their products. They'll do a nice tasting, and that'll be a great day just outside of town. You will have some free time. If I don't know how warm it'll be at that time of year, but you can always head down to the beach and explore as well. And so that's our last stop of the Sicily Calabria tour. This is actually these two tours are the first two tour itineraries we ever offered as part of Caputo Brothers Creamery before we were Curata. And we'll talk a little about the iconic Italy, which was the first tour we ever did. This tour came out of, for those of you who don't know the story of Caputo Brothers Creamery, the owners, Rin and Dave Caputo, went to culinary school in Calabria, actually down in this part, sort of the instep of the boot of Italy, in a town called Soverato. And they spent a lot of time traveling throughout Italy during school, and then afterwards they spent 6 months traveling through all of the regions from a food and wine perspective. But Calabria is such a place in their hearts that it was natural for it to be the second tour itinerary we ever did. And they also spent a lot of time traveling around all of Sicily. So both of these tours are sort of our OG, our original itineraries. They've changed over the years. Like I said, this tuna producer is one we have been wanting to organize something with. This is 2024 is the first year we did something with them. So we're always learning and growing and adding more experiences as we find them. And you know, it's changed over the years, but we just keep improving it. And but both of these hold a special place in our hearts for sure. And so that is Sicily and Calabria. So these are some highlights from just this past year. This is Jackie getting to see her first cannoli, and obviously very impressed. There will be again no shortage, and these are Sicilian cannoli that are made with ricotta di pecora, which is sheep's milk ricotta. That is the traditional way to fill a cannoli, not mascarpone. It is ricotta. And so this here is with some pistachio. This is our winery visit. We had a beautiful day there. It's a really stunning winery, just a little inland from Syracuse. Here's Paolo and Francesco. So this is La Casetta di Picantino, the little spicy house. Yes, little house of spice. It is Dave Caputo has always said this would be his man cave if it could be. The whole ceiling, the walls, everything. He is curing all of his own meats. You can see the spice on here. And our friend Paolo loves everything spicy. When we would do farm table dinners, he would bring his own bottle of pepperoncino, and you can see all of his products here. So they not only the meats, he's got amazing jarred products. This is a perfect place at the end of the trip to fill whatever room you have left in your suitcase with products. It's amazing. And this is part of the tuna experience. It's amazing. This is a big producer. They pack all of these jars by hand. These women just do an amazing job. It's interesting. It's very I was calling it very like, for those of you who remember Sesame Street, a very like Sesame Street experience to see an entire assembly line and see sort of like how it's made. So it's really fascinating, and you get a great appreciation for a product that you probably don't think of relating to Italy, or something that you have in your pantry that you've never really thought about more than beyond the can of tuna in your pantry. And then this is just a beautiful, like I was mentioning, the overlook of Tropea. This is Tropea at night. And you can see this is actually the island of the volcano Stromboli back here. So occasionally you can see it smoking, she's letting off a little steam, but amazing views from Tropea as well. So that is Sicily and Calabria. Like I said, both of these tours, we do still have some seats left. You can find them on our website. And I'm going to let Brianna and Chris talk for a little while, and they're going to tell you all about Iconic Italy.
Iconic Italy. This is a great tour if you're trying to just get 3 totally different experiences. So each place we stay in is very different from the last. You have coastal, cliffside beach town. You have university, very historic city, and then you have rolling hills of Tuscany. So if you're just trying to sort of check mark all of those things on one trip to Italy, this is a great option. So this one runs May 16th to the 25th, 2025. And our first stop is...
Oh, sorry. I forgot I was still in charge of the
not me.
clicker.
There we go. Oh, our route. So you'll see the Cinque Terre is there on the coast, and then we head inland towards Bologna, and then just south of Florence in the Chianti region. Thank you, Kyle.
You're welcome. I don't usually get to do the pointer, so here we go.
Now, first stop, Cinque Terre. So we stay in the first of the 5 towns. So Cinque Terre actually stands for 5 lands. So the first one is Monterosso, and we stay at this really beautiful hotel. And I think if it's not number 1, it's like really close to being the top hotel along all of the Cinque Terre, simply because of the view itself. And of course, The rooms are really beautiful, and so you have this gorgeous view of the Mediterranean Sea, and really all of the views along the Cinque Terre are breathtaking, jaw-dropping views. I was looking through pictures to include in the presentation, and it was really hard to just pick one or two. So you'll see those a little later on. But you also have a free day during our 3 nights there. So your free day allows you to sort of spend it the way you'd like. You can spend it on the beach. You can spend it at the pool at our accommodation. You can decide to go on a hike to the rest of the towns, or maybe just one of the towns. And or you could take a train and go from town to town to visit. And like we mentioned earlier, and as Kim and Paul mentioned, we make recommendations for your free time. So we'll give you recommendations on where to have lunch, or how to use the train, or where to pick up the hiking trail. So you're not left wondering how to spend some of your free time. If you're going to Cinque Terre or this region in general, you have to learn how to make pesto. So we've included a pesto making class on one of our days. So you're putting in the work. We learn the recipe. You're using the mortar and pestle, and you're grinding it down to make the best and most delicious pesto you've ever had in your entire life. And then you have the recipe, so you can continue to make it when you return back home after the trip. Kim and Paul also mentioned our sunset boat cruise. So that is sort of a must do while you're in Cinque Terre, because you get to sail from town to town. And we always say that it is the best way to see each of the 5 towns. So you can visit them in person, but to get a full picture, just taking that boat and being able to take a picture and take it all in and learn a little bit of history and pointing out the landmarks along the way. And it doesn't help that there's a little Prosecco involved. It's a great way to experience the town itself. I will now hand it over to Chris to talk about your next 2 stops.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Althouse. I'm the other experience curator at Curata Travel, so I work alongside Kyle and Brianna. I'm relatively new to Curata, but I lived in Italy for almost 2 years. I actually lived in Bologna, so it's fitting that I start the presentation here. And with my time in Italy, I think I was able to uncover 2 passions. The first of which is, in that time, I was really off the beaten path. So I got to see Italy from that perspective. And another thing is I got to see and experience and taste regional cultures, regional dishes, as opposed to just an overall Italian cuisine that I had previously living in America. And so living there, I could go region to region and really experience it. And so that's why I'm here today. So yeah, I'll start with Bologna. This continues the theme of iconic Italy. Like Brianna said, we started at a coastal cliffside town. Bologna checks off the iconic box for Italy because, as she said, it's a very historic, medieval, bustling city. It's smaller than Rome, smaller than Milan, but it still has a lot to do, lots of shops, lots of restaurants. So for quick facts, it has the oldest university in the Western world, which dates back to 1088. The city was founded in, I think, around 500 BC. So it's very, very, very historic. And you can see this and feel this while walking through the streets under the porticos, which are the covered walkways, which you can actually see in that picture below. Thank you, Kyle. So you can see the architecture really shows the history of this city, and you'll be able to feel it around you when walking through the streets. It is regarded as the food capital of Italy. So obviously it has to be included on a culinary tour. And so some things that we will do while we're in Bologna. Parmigiano Reggiano originates from a small town that is in between Parma and Modena, which is in the Emilia-Romagna region still, where Bologna is located and is the capital of. So we'll head a little bit outside of Bologna to go to a Parmigiano Reggiano producer, see how it's made, and sample different agings of Parmigiano. And it's an amazing, eye-opening experience. Then we will head to a balsamic vinegar producer in Modena, which is still in that region, right outside the city center. And this will change your view on balsamic vinegar, American balsamic vinegar, because it tastes so different and so good. And it's very, very unique to what we have in America and what we think is true balsamic vinegar. Going to where it originates from is a really cool experience, and you get to sample it at different agings as well. And then we'll also do a walking food tour of the city. So we'll stop by different restaurants and different producers, and we try everything from sweets like chocolate to wines to pastas. You get to see how tortellini is made, try to make one yourself. It's a really cool experience to see what this region's food culture is all about. And
All right. I also wanted to point out the hotel where we're staying in this city is amazing location. It is up this little alley right next to the Duomo. The first time I stayed there, I could hear some singing. I couldn't figure out what it was. I opened my window and it's just coming right out of the church, and it was amazing. I mean, you can't describe it. There's the bells, plus you're right here off the main piazza under the portici are, there's little bars lining everything. There's always some sort of performance going on. It's a really spectacular location. And then the hotel itself has amazing historic touches. One of the things we loved when we first stayed there was that, the room shows you, there's a lot of historic photos from what either your room used to be, what one part of the hotel used to be, that some of the original beams are in there. All the rooms are different, but it is a really charming spot, and again, perfectly located for exploring Bologna. So the next spot, and then yeah, it's the next spot.
The next stop on this tour is Panzano in Chianti, which is a small Tuscan hillside town. So Tuscany will be the third region that we touch on this trip. And I don't even need to explain why this one is iconic. I feel like we've all seen the computer screensavers of the rolling hills, the cypress trees, the vineyards for miles and miles. So that's exactly what you'll be getting from this. You'll make it come to life, which is a really, really cool, fun thing to see, and to see that that's not fake. That's not something that we just put on our computers. It's actually there. So it's the wine paradise. It's known as the wine paradise. It's located in Chianti, which I feel like most of you have tried or at least heard of Chianti wine before. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a hilltop town, and there's panoramic views all around of the hills and the vineyards in Tuscany. And so some of the things, so the reason that we choose to go to Panzano and Chianti, it's kind of two reasons. One is what I previously mentioned. On an iconic Italy tour, you need the iconic view of Italy that a lot of Americans have, which is the Tuscan rolling hills. But another reason is because Dario Cecchini, who is a very well-known Tuscan butcher, is a friend of us at Curata. He has an episode on Netflix's series Chef's Table where he describes his philosophies with meat and his backstory, and it's very interesting and very eye-opening. So I definitely recommend giving that a watch if you have the chance. But in Panzano, he has his family butcher shop as well as 2 restaurants. So we knew we needed to include this on our tour. And so we do a meat feast, and I know that sounds intimidating, but it's really incredible. We get to try so many different cuts of meats, and there are some veggies as well to balance that out. And so it's cool to actually experience in person what you have watched or seen or heard about Dario, and to be able to sample what he creates. Along with that, we do a tour of a medieval castle, the Verrazzano Castle, which has been producing wine for centuries. And so we get to sample a lot of their different wines, and also, of course, food and bites from the region. So that gives us a good taste of the food of Tuscany.
Absolutely. And I wanted to point out, only because we were just talking to someone yesterday about this portion of the trip, and she is a pescatarian, so she eats fish, she doesn't eat meat. And she was asking, as it related to this tour and other tours, but specifically this she said, I saw somewhere that there's a butcher and a meat feast. How would that work? And so one note I just wanted to make is that if you do have allergies or dietary restrictions, those we can accommodate. We just asked to know about them ahead of time. So we plan we've talked on this whole webinar about some of the experiences and the highlights of these trips from that perspective. But what we haven't really talked about is, in general, the meals. So on any trip, you maybe have one meal on your own. Everything else is a group meal together, maybe one or two meals you might have on your own. And in these group meals, we have planned the menus ahead of time. So we've worked with the restaurant or the chef to really highlight whatever their specialty personally is, something that their restaurant is known for, something that the chef is known for, and from a larger perspective, what this region is known for. So when we know in advance that someone is a pescatarian, vegetarian, we can communicate this with the restaurant and plan a different menu for you. So even though we are going to a famous butcher and having something called a meat feast, he does have a vegetarian menu. Dario's whole philosophy of nose to tail and no waste and respecting the animal is something that I think even someone who's a vegetarian comes to respect and can see that this is not a whole commercial enterprise. And that's just an example of the kind of things that we're hoping to show people during our tours is, a lot of maybe in our society, we're going to buy a package of ground beef and we're making it and eating it, and we're not thinking a ton about where it comes from. And I think you come away from these tours, again, Dario just as an example, but you come away from these tours with a huge amount of knowledge and respect for the food that you're eating. We do, as Paul said, we eat a lot of food on these trips. They're very robust meals, but they are a slow way of eating. The Italians structure their meals in a way that you're not completely, overly stuffed. It's a long, leisurely meal. The format of the meal is to all aid with digestion. There's even a digestivo, which is your little after dinner drink, your amato or your limoncello. Those are all meant to help with digestion as well. So all of that to say is I wanted to make sure we also talked about the food and the meals as well, so you have a sort of picture of that as we talk about our tours. And then here's some highlights from this year's trip. This is the view from the hotel in Monterosso in the Cinque Terre, and a winery that we visit there, complete with a singing chef, of course, because why wouldn't we? Some of the amazing shots that you'll get from our sunset cruise. We didn't talk about this. We do a pizza tasting, which is amazing. Here's Brianna showing people how it's done with the pesto as well. Some highlights from Bologna, the famous bolognese and tortellini and brodo, which I could use right now because it is perfect on a chilly day. And some highlights from our time in Tuscany, wine tasting and amazing cooking class that we do there, where you'll learn to make fresh pasta and some sauces. So you come away with all the skills on this trip. And then I wanted to do a quick announcement. So those are two towards the beginning of the year. Because our 17 tours that we currently have aren't enough, we have added a new one. Two of our, I don't know why this isn't loaded. Left out some, so it's a secret. This is something we have been working on for a while with two of our tour leaders who live in Florence. We have wanted to do something special in Florence. Again, I know we have talked a lot about how we do off the beaten path, but you've heard us talk about Bologna, which is a town people know about, Cinque Terre. When we do go to cities like this, we believe in showing it to you in a different way. And so this tour is called Her Florence and is focused on women-led businesses, producers, products, women-led businesses, And partners that our two tour leaders, Martina and Romina, have met along the way in their time in Florence. So this will be a week spent in Florence, in the city. There will be some excursions here and there, but it'll be completely focused on female-led businesses and producers. And so it's live on our website right now. And another interesting point, oh, here's some highlights at the bottom. We'll be doing a truffle hunt. There'll be a historic walking tour from a women in Florentine history perspective, a winery visit, amazing meals, of course, and a mixology demo talking about sort of the aperitivo, the European happy hour that we love so much when we go over there. So this will be a November tour. This is the time of year that it's slowed down a little bit from a tourism perspective, but before it's picked up too much for the holidays and gets you home before Thanksgiving as well. And this is going to be a really special tour. So we're excited to share that with you. And in that vein as well, oh, there it goes. I wanted to mention that we had decided to extend our Black Friday special. So if you did not know about it ahead of time, we did have it expiring today. We're extending it a week. And this is a discount of $150 off per person for new registrations. So there's some fine print. If you go on our website, there's a pop-up that explains everything, but this is for new registrations that come in before the end of next week for any of our 2025 tours. And so we have extended that through the end of next week. And I don't know if any questions have popped up, but I've got our website on here. There's a contact us page. Those emails come directly to me, Kyle. And we hope to see you on a tour sometime soon. We've got another webinar coming up at the beginning of next month. And Brianna and Chris, do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't think so. Well, I know some of you in the that are joined will be on a tour next year. So looking forward to traveling with you guys. And if you're not signed up, but you're thinking about it, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer that and hopefully get you on a tour with us.
We do have one question.
Okay.
That is, what is your single traveler supplement?
Sure. So that, I don't know if they're asking for the amount or what it actually is, but the amount is different for every tour. And what the single supplement is it's basically to accommodate the additional hotel rooms. So when you book a hotel, it's $100 for a double room. If we were to book a double room for just one person, the price doesn't go down to $50. It's not like it's cut in half. So it might go down $10, if that. In a lot of cases, it is the same price. So it is just to make up for the difference in hotel price to have what's called a double for single use, because we don't give single travelers like a small twin bed or anything like that. You still have the same size bed. You're still paying for the same tour. So it is literally just to make up for the difference in hotel costs. So that it's different for every tour because it depends on the hotel costs for that tour. So on any trip, you can, when you scroll to the bottom and look at where we had the flights, there's one that says pricing, and it'll tell you what the cost is for the single supplement. It's under $1,000 for every trip, but it can range from $500 to $900 per person. And so that's what that is. That's both an explanation and general costs. Something else that's in that bottom part of the website other than flights is we have something that says trip notes. And for every trip we've gone through, we've tried to identify anything that might be a challenge for people. So our Due Coste tour, we visit a town called Matera, which is an ancient cave town. For someone that has mobility issues, this town could be challenging. And so we try to point out that on any given trip. Like if a tour is particularly heavy in seafood and you don't eat any seafood or have a severe allergy, this might be an issue. And so that's just something to take note of as you're considering a tour as well, something to look at, things we've tried to point out to make sure everyone has as much information as possible beforehand. All right. Well, thank you guys. We went a little over our hour that we had planned, but I hope you guys found this interesting and helpful. And always feel free to reach out, follow us on social media. We're always trying to share more tips like these flight tips and more tips about our tours in general.
And one last thing, someone did ask if they missed the beginning, can they get the presentation at another time? Yes, it's being recorded, and we'll plan to send out the recording probably by the end of the day today.
Yep, we'll be sharing it on our social media and through our newsletter. So definitely be sharing that, of course. All right. Thank you guys so much. Thanks so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season and hope to see you on a tour. Ciao, ciao.
Well,